Duff and Peeps and Etymologists, it's Jane, and show you in detail the new bookbinding kit. As you probably already know, I absolutely love art journaling, and one of my favorite activities is making my own art journals and then filling them up. And I have had bookbinding supplies in my store for as long as I've had it, and it is so, I'm going to say cool. It is so cool to now be able to show you my new bookbinding kit. It includes the essential paper piercer or awl, a paper folder or creaser, bookbinding needles, and wax linen thread. But it wouldn't be something designed by me if it was just ordinary. No, it has to be awesome for a start, but it has to be presented so that it makes you want to pick it up. So each piece has to be delightful. So we start with the beautiful envelope that houses everything. These are the thread heads that come in the bookbinding kit, and you can add extra thread heads. There's another 6 to collect. So there's 9 overall, and you've got all of these gorgeous colours in the wax linen threads. And this is the thread that's going to hold your book together. So picking out the right colour that's going to live with your journal, that's going to connect all of the pages, it's actually a lovely, creative, fun process, and I wanted to offer you beautiful options. And they're housed in a really unique, practical, yet super cute way. And I have all of these colours because I so often create journals from paper that I've already painted and sprayed ink on and had a lot of fun with. So in the background, that's what you've got. I've got my pages already cut up and painted, and now let's select a colour that we're going to bind with. So I was having difficulty. I really thinking the blooming heather was going to be actually would look better, but then I thought, oh, that hot lotus pink might be easier for you to see. I need to select a needle, and in the Happy Journal Binder Kit, you've got a variety of needles. They have 2 different eye sizes and 2 different lengths. They're all have a blunt finish, sharp enough for them to be used as a needle, but we don't want a pinpoint sharp needle for bookbinding. You just don't need it because you're not going to be piercing paper. We're going to be piercing the paper with an awl and then using the needle just to pull through the wax linen thread. In the bookbinding needle card, you've also got a little reminder, a little instruction on a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. Of course, you can use the tools in the kit to create whatever kind of binding you like, but I find this 5-hole pamphlet stitch works fantastically for all of my journals. You're also going to have the awl in there, or the paper piercer, and it has a little stopper just to protect the end. And we need our bone folder or paper creaser. These are just various names for the same product. And that's what we're going to use just to get a really nice sharp crease on the paper. So I've loosely folded these already, but any bookbinding project will benefit dramatically if you use a paper folder just to get that crease nice and sharp. I also love to play with the arrangement of the pieces of paper that I'm going to be stitching together to use as a journal. And the beauty of this method is if you make the journal you don't like, it's very easy to just redo it. On the top of the thread head, you can see that little notch. That is just to hold your thread so it's easy to finish and start again every time you pick it up. And I'm going to measure off twice the length of my journal and a little bit extra. I think it's better to have a little bit too much than not quite enough. And the thread has to be a waxed thread for this process. Otherwise, it's very difficult to get it through all of the pages. and linen is traditionally used because it's stronger. To prepare my thread to be put through the needle, I just take one end of the needle and flatten it, and because it's got that wax, it will hold that shape. Oh, and just go straight through the needle, straight through the other needle. We love that. Yay! And just pull the thread through a little so that it doesn't get unfastened, unhitched as you are creating. I'm just going to put the thread to one side and open up my journal into the middle. So I've got 4 or 5 pieces of paper here. I'll have to wait till I can count it as we go. I think there's 4, and it's quite a thick paper. And you can experiment with how many pages you want to put in there. The best way to work out what it is that you like is to make a few journals, and then you learn what's to your taste. And I want to pierce a hole right through the middle. So I place my awl there on the inside spine, squeeze the whole book together, push it through about halfway. Now you can get very organized and measure this out so it is exactly halfway, but to me it doesn't really matter. And I like to then put my threaded needle into the journal, just into that middle point, so that it holds my place, it holds the pages together a little. Now, if I thread it from the inside of the book, when I finish, I'll be tying a knot on the inside of the book. Sometimes I prefer that. If I start from the outside and come in, that's where I'm going to be finishing, on the outside, and that is where I'll be tying my bow. If that doesn't make sense, it will as we go. So just remember that that's what I've done. There are choices always. Now I'm going to come down to the bottom of the page and just come up about 1 centimetre or half an inch from the bottom of the page. And I'm going to put my awl there right in the middle of that spine and push the awl through the paper. And the handle of this little awl is made so that you can hold it in several different ways. It's faceted so that it's easy to hold with fingers, but also rounded at the top so that you can place that against your palm and use the force of your whole hand if you've got really heavy or thick papers. And for the next hole, I'm going to come in halfway between the middle and that bottom one. Then I'm going to come up to the top of my page, come down that centimetre or half an inch. You can have your own preferences. Push my awl through. And I don't just want to push the very top of it. I really want to push right through with that awl where it gets thicker so that I'm making a nice little hole there that's going to be easier for me to thread with, and it won't make any difference to the art making. And then again, halfway between the middle and that top hole. So at the end, I've got 5 holes altogether. And don't forget that you do have that little guide right there. So if you do get lost, you've got that to lead you back on track. And I'm just going to pull that needle through now that I've got all my holes. I'm ready to start stitching. Pull it through, but I need to leave a little bit of tail out at the end so that I can tie off my journal. If you want to, as a little safety measure, you can add a knot in there just to help it not come all the way through. That doesn't always work because you've had the awl hole. So just keep an eye on that. You don't want to pull the thread through so far that the tail disappears. And we're just going to use the guide to lead us along. So we're going to go up first and do like a figure 8. So go up to the very next hole. Push the needle through. This is why it's nice that it's not a normal sewing needle. Is very sharp, and just like I said, we don't need the sharpness, we need the needleness. Then I'm going to go up to the top the top hole there. Now sometimes, like has happened here, the needle doesn't go all the way through the pages, and that's when we, what I call shish kebab, and you might have to place the papers on top of the needle. Not a big problem. And then we drop down a hole. So coming back through the middle of that figure 8, you can keep the threads not super tight, but organized, like a little bit, sort them out a little bit as you go. And try not to sew through the thread, so you're not splitting the thread. If that does happen, it's not the end of the world. It does make it a little harder sometimes to tighten up the journal at the end. So that will happen to you in your bookbinding journey. Just know that that's okay. And then I'm going to skip the middle hole, as you can see in that little guide, and come down and do another figure 8. And I'm skipping that middle hole because that's where we want to end up at the very, very end, so that we can tie off the journal. Again, just shish kebabbing those pages on. It's so nice when you just put the needle through and it just slips through all the pages. Once you start doing this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a particular niceness. So then I come down, I'm again coming through the middle to form that figure 8, just following this guide along. This is I don't want to say ancient because I don't know how long it's been around, but 5-hole pamphlet stitch is a very basic, very useful, very simple binding technique that will hold you in good grace with many journals, if I'm any indication anyway, because I teach this in all of my workshops, online and in person, and it's fabulous. I pull the needle off and put it away, otherwise needle in a haystack is not what we want. And I've got it in its cute little house. And then I'm going to just tighten everything up by pulling the threads, not too aggressively. I don't want to choose violence, but I do want that to be tightened up. Check inside. And I want to have one thread on each side of the middle long thread there, tied off, and then that just keeps everything nice. Some people like to add beads or charms to those little tails. If you're going to do that, make sure you leave that till after you've created in your journal. All the tails are really long. Otherwise, you end up with all of these little chunky businesses underneath the page, and it can make it difficult to create in. So now I have these pages that are all customized, personalized, artified, and I have stitched them all together and I've turned it into a book. I'm going to put all of my little bits and pieces back into the little happy journaling envelope in that beautiful Aurora Borealis finish. I love that. It's unicorny, mermaidy. And I'm also going to pop all of my other thread heads that come separately, and they can live as one happy family until I'm ready to bind another journal. This is an exclusive to my website at janedavenport.com. We love sending my designs all over the world to happy artists every day.